So, I'm just going to give you a quick summary of what we're going to be talking about today so you all know what to expect from the talk. We'll start by explaining a bit about ourselves and where we've come from as people, what we've done before this, and then a little bit about the company. And we'll move on to the publishing process, so from start to finish. So you've got your story, but how does it become a book? What happens? What do you need to do? And we'll add into that what it is that we do specifically. And we'll compare ourselves to other publishers, because if you've researched it, you might have found different ways of being published, and there's a lot of different benefits to different types of publishers. We're also very lucky because we've got Peter here today. He's our first signed author, Trouble Trouble. It's actually our most popular book at the moment, so that's well done to you. And he's going to come up and talk about his side of things, how it was to deal with us as an author, just share his opinion, and then talk about his book in particular. And from there, we'll move on to explain to you about our other books, just tell you a little bit about the stories. We've only brought our display copies today, but we've got an order form. So if any of them are appealing to you and you're interested, put your name down, and we're doing a discount today, and you can pay later and we'll get them out to you. And then we've got some gift packs. There's more people than we thought, so some of you might have to share. We'll be giving those out, and you can take that away and read all the information. So if we've spoken either, I tend to talk quite fast when I'm nervous, for example, so if you forget anything or when you go away you want to look it up, we've got all of that in there. So, on that note, I'm just going to hand over to Matthew to introduce us and get started.
Hello everyone. Often we're told, as we heard earlier, that everyone has a book inside them. But how many take the time to actually write that book? How many does the dream matter to enough for them to put pen to paper? And where do they find their voice in an industry where there's already such a diverse range of literary fiction? We're Nemesis Publishing, and we aim to be that voice to help new and emerging talent. So who are we? Well, I'm Matthew, and this is Claire. We met at university when we were sharing halls of residence. We were both writers, and we were mooting together our ideas of our styles and where we hope to take our writing. We looked into the current methods, and we found a lot of confusing information out there, and there was some conflicting information and the different styles, which we will get onto. But we wanted to offer something different and something unique, and so after months of researching, we got tired with people telling us what we couldn't do and what couldn't happen. So we began to look at what we could do ourselves, and so we became Nemesis Publishing, with the name intended to be a reference to being an independent rival that is by writers for writers. And our core philosophy is to incorporate as much of the writer in their work as possible, and to have their input throughout the whole process from start to finish, because it's their dream, it's what matters to them, so why shouldn't it be personal? And with that in mind, we hand over to how we work as a publisher.
So it would be easier for me to explain how we work by starting off and telling you about some other publishers and how they can help you. So mainstream publishing is probably the one that you might all have heard of and all know about. And what a mainstream publisher will do is publish your book entirely at their own cost. They won't ask for any money off you, any financial input, they will cover it all themselves. However, if they're going to do that, they need to know that they can get that money back. They need to know that your book is financially viable to them. How do they know that they're going to make their money back? Well, what you might have noticed is that books have changing genres with the season. So one month there'll be a lot of sci-fi books that come out. The next month might be dark romance. It all follows a trend. So if dark romance is what's in and you write a dark romance, you're already onto a winner, because it's already popular. But it means if you write something slightly different, you might be really good at writing, but they might not be interested in you at that current time. And that can really hurt your feelings if they sort of reject you, and it might discourage you from going back to them. So that's one thing to know with a mainstream publisher. They have very high standards as well. So your writing's got to be really up to scratch, you've got to be really good at your writing. And that means that you might want to look into hiring a professional proofreader. Now, a proofreader reads through your story. Once you've written your draft, they'll read it, they'll pick out any errors, spelling, punctuation, grammar, sentence structure. They'll tell you how the story flows, anything like that. But at £25 an hour upwards, it can really start adding up. So a mainstream publisher might pay for your book, but to get noticed in the first place could cost you quite a little bit of money to get your work up to the quality that they expect. And finally, a mainstream publisher, like any other business, are not very likely to take a risk on something they're unsure about. So if you're a new author, if you've never written before and this is your first try, they're going to be very wary of you without an agent. And an agent is going to add another layer of fees into it. So it becomes really difficult to get yourself noticed by a mainstream publisher. Once you do, brilliant, but getting there is really tough. Now there was a newspaper story a while ago, I don't know if anyone saw it, and the headline was, "Young teenage girl signs up for 3-book deal with publisher." That sounds brilliant. A young teenage girl, 3 books under a belt, published. That's a really good achievement. But how did she do it? What was that about? Now when you read into the story further, what you come across is that she published chapters of her work online over many years. And through diligence and hard work and going on the website every day, she maintained a fan base. People start to enjoy her work, they followed her, they commented on it, really appreciated her posting regular. And so she got a lot of hits, she got thousands and thousands of people enjoying the work. So she was scouted. Why was she scouted? Well, because she had such a high number of hits, the publisher knew that that was money in their back pocket, that was people buying the books. If thousands of people enjoyed it, they're going to make some money on it. So that's another way that you might find you can get noticed by mainstream publishers. They do have a high quality, they do have a very well trusted business name, a good business model, they can guarantee you sales, they can take your book and it'll be on the shelf in Waterstones, in Smiths, but to get noticed in the first place is very difficult. So there are your pros and cons to the mainstream publisher. Another one that you might have heard of is what's known as a vanity publisher, and what they will do is they will charge you phenomenal fees to make your book, and they'll justify it with costs for this or to read your book or to do this that and the other. But what you actually find is there is no selection criteria with them. They don't proofread it, they don't quality check it, they don't give you any advice, or little to no advice, depending where you'll go. But essentially, they'll take your money and they'll take your work and they will go to a manufacturer, order thousands of copies at a time and then pass them back to you. They don't have any need to try and sell your book. They've already made their money from you. So you'll be left doing the hard work afterwards, and you'll be left with lots of copies. Now, a story about vanity publishing was a gentleman was trying to get his book published, sent it to a vanity publisher, and they replied with, "This is fantastic. We've not read anything this good for a long time. We'd love to do this bestseller. Just pop a cheque in the post for £8,000 and we'll do everything for you. That's fine. But don't worry, we won't take any profit until you make your money back. So you're first, you come first." That sounded all right to him. Took his loan out, submitted his work. They didn't really read it. It went through. Some errors. Quality was medium to poor quality. But he did well. He had some friends and family. They supported him and told some local people, sent his copies out. And he got his book listed on W.H. Smith's website. Which is fantastic. And a few months later, a friend came to him and said, "I've ordered your book, but it's not arrived. Do you know what's happening?" He said, "No, well, I don't know, maybe there's a delay." And over time, a few more people came and said, "We've ordered your book and we don't have it." So the gentleman approached the vanity publisher and said, "Look, some people have ordered my book and you've not sent it." And what they replied with, which was in their fine print, they only print 100 copies minimum, and they will not print any more until they have 100 sales. So he could have got 99 people order it. They would have not printed it and distributed them, and it left these customers hanging. So that's another story to be aware of with vanity publishers. But again, if they're right for you and you just you need a lot of copies fast, then that's for you. Now finally, self-publishing is one of the biggest, most rising ways of becoming a publisher. A lot of people are very independent, they like to do it themselves. With computer and the internet, you can do a lot without all these companies, without all these middlemen, and that's brilliant. So, because you do it all yourself, except for manufacturing, you get 100% control. The book can look exactly how you want. You can have whatever cover you want, you can make it any style you want, any colour. That's brilliant. You only have to buy them when you want them, so you could buy 1, you could buy 10, you could buy 50. That's fantastic. Self-publishing, surely that's the way to go. However, once again, like vanity publishing, there's no selection process. There's no one who reads it and really gives you any feedback. No one tells you, this was good about your story, or I enjoyed this, or maybe you should try reworking this. You just upload it to the computer, you get it straight back. They do offer, some self-publishing websites do offer these services as an extra, a proofreading service, which is optional, or they'll do book cover for you. But you're looking at something like £9 to £10 per 1,000 words. If you have 60,000 words in your book, which would be a novel, you're looking at about £600 or £700 for someone to read it. And then the book cover could be £200 plus. And you don't know what kind of cover that is. It might just be a clip art or a photograph with some text. It doesn't seem to be very personalised. And again, an ISBN number, it's the number above and below the barcode. And when you scan this in at the shop, it comes up on the till with the price and the product name, and that's uploaded to the database, Nielsen database, where manufacturers can have a look, search an ISBN number and find your book. However, self-publishing websites can give you an ISBN number for free, but it's a recycled ISBN number from an old discontinued book. So if you took your book to a shop and they scanned it, it would not correspond to your book. It would show up as something else. And to truly be self-published, the regulation says that your barcode has to scan to you as the author and your book title, and either yourself as a publisher or another publishing company. So you could go through these sites but not truly be self-published. And you wouldn't get any advice, you would just be going on your own merit and trusting in yourself that the quality is what you expected. Now, as an addition to self-publishing, you can also self-publish e-books. Obviously with the rise of Kindle, they're very popular. You cut out the manufacturing costs, you can save a lot of money, you just give it digitally. However, you lose the artwork, you lose a lot of the identity of the book when you do an e-book, but it is very tempting and it's very popular. Now, another story about an e-book publisher. The company offered to sell your e-book for you. They would put it in the correct format, which to do yourself can be very difficult. If someone bought your book, how do you stop them copying it and emailing it to their friends or selling it elsewhere cheaper? You've got to protect your work. So there's a company that can do that for you. They'll protect it. And they even give you a choice. Do you want 35% royalty or do you want 75% royalty? Why give a choice? 75% sounds brilliant, right? At 35% royalty, you're allowed to set your ebook price at whatever you like. $4.99, $5.99, and you'll gain 35% of that. However, at 75% royalty, you have a maximum of £2 that you can set your ebook at. So you can only sell it for a maximum of $1.99. So 75% of $1.99 is not going to be very much more than 35% of a higher cost. So when you think about it, you're not really getting a better deal. On top of that, there is fine print in some companies, and they're known to sell your ebook onto another company, to a third party, who are allowed to sell it, but they're in no obligation to pay you royalties. So they may sell it to someone else who will sell your book and not pay you for it. And as if that wasn't tempting enough, if the third party decided to sell your ebook for a penny, or even buy one get one free, or give it away, the initial company you signed up to, at their discretion, is allowed to match a competitor price and override your choice. So they may start selling your ebook at nothing. So 75% of nothing is nothing. So you're still not going to be any better off. Now, to summarise, that sounds all very negative. I did give you a couple of horror stories there. But they do all have their pros and cons. Some of them are more professional, some of them give you advice from people who have masters in English degrees, they're qualified proofreaders, etc. You can get good services from them. But what it all comes down to is what is best for you as a writer. If you're writing something now or thinking of being published, what matters to you? Do you want to retain the artistic direction? Do you want big sales numbers? Do you have a lot of money? Do you not want to put a lot of money in? So you really need to consider what it is you want. So that was just a summary of the other publishers. So we'll move on to ourselves now and how we fit into that kind of equation based on those. Now, we don't pretend to be mainstream. We're not going to sit here and tell you that sign up with us today and tomorrow you've got a movie deal, here's a cheque for £10,000, you're in all the stores. We did promise you that, didn't we? But yeah, so we don't pretend to be something that we're not. We don't have the established business model of the bigger publishers. But we're not going to charge you to not read your work. We're not going to ask for £1,000, flick through your work and say, yeah, it's brilliant, yeah, we'll do that. We'll actually read it, we'll actually do something with it. But what we would consider ourselves is a little bit from all of them. Hopefully the best bits, if we're right for you. But it's essentially self-publishing. So you do gain all the control. It's about, the cover can look exactly how you want. You decide what you want. But all the finicky bit, like the ISBN number and the difficulties in uploading it, and you also have to submit a published book to legal library deposit in Wetherby. We take care of all that. We take care of all the boring stuff and all the finance. But we also help you as readers and as writers, and just as another pair of eyes to read your work, to tell you what we thought about it, if there's some spelling errors, we'll pick them up for you, we'll point things out, we'll go back and forth, we'll get some ideas going. So we're kind of in the middle. It's a professional service with a bit more of a personal touch. Each person is important to us because for ourselves, when we were looking into it, what we wanted was our book to look how we wanted. And sometimes, you'll take advice from someone, but you get a bit stubborn, don't you? You're like, well, it's my book, I want it how I want it. And that's what we do. We help you decide what you really want. So with that summary in mind, how do you publish a book? How do we take a project from its concept to the full creation? How do we turn your idea into a book? Now, we've listed the stages of publication in the order that we think is most important. And the first thing, after you've created your story, the first thing you'll want to think about is protection and copyright of your work. Now, if you want to send it out to either agents or friends or maybe old lecturers, English lecturers, maybe even other authors that have inspired you to write, and you want to send it and see if they'll give it a read for you, you've got to consider about protecting it first. It's not about that every person who reads your work is going to run off with it and claim it as their own, but you just want to make sure that you take care to protect in case. Now, people might have heard of something known as the poor man's copyright, which is where you'll print off the copy of your manuscript or your ideas, or save them onto a memory disc, put it in an envelope and post it to yourself so that it's date stamped. That's fine, it works for some people. If it's a dispute between, I don't know, yourself and a neighbour or someone you know, you can say, oh, the proof's in here kind of thing. But if it ever got to a court of law, it doesn't hold any weight. Hopefully, nothing will ever get that far. But, it depends how much it matters to you and how much you could put into it in the financial sense. But to copyright yourself in a court of law, you will need a proper copyright. And different countries charge different rates. However, recently, there's something called the Berne Convention for Protection of Literary and Artistic Words. It's a bit of a mouthful. But what it means is you don't actually have to purchase a copyright anymore. The countries that have signed up to this convention, between them, they all universally agree that the moment you create work, so the minute you put pen to paper, that is protected and you own it. And they've all universally agreed to that, so it's not quite as difficult anymore, it's not quite as stringent in terms of getting the copyright, but it's always something to consider. And we here, if you ever submit something, we would always encourage, we'd always remind you about copyright and check that you're happy, you've done what you want to do and you're happy to proceed with the method you've chosen. Now, we don't offer copyright, we wouldn't pay for copyright or anything like that, because if we did, it would be copyright to us, which means we own it, and that is not what we intend to do. If you've created it, you own it, you can do what you will with it. So we can give you some advice on copyright, and we can give you links and contacts to look into it, but we don't offer it as an actual service. But that's the first stage that we would recommend when you start your publishing journey. Look at how you're going to protect your work. Second that we would recommend is, as previously mentioned, proofreading or editing. Now, I don't know how many of you have written stories or you're writing something at the moment and you read it back and you give it a check, and you could read and reread and reread and it's perfect. There's not a word out of place, it's brilliant. Print it off, give it to a colleague or a friend, and it comes back with all the red pen marks and you've misspelt this and you've got this letter the wrong way, and you look at it and think, I didn't do that. But what it is, when you create something, your brain knows what it should say, so you read it how it should be. But a fresh pair of eyes is able to pick out these errors because they don't know how it should be. They see it for what it is. So we recommend that you get it proofread. Now, whether you get a friend to do it or whether you just trust yourself, for example, if you went to self-publishing route, maybe you would just get a friend to give it a second read and then you'd go forward, and that's fine. Equally, you can pay a professional. People can take courses in proofreading and editing. You can be qualified as a proofreader. But again, similar to what we were mentioning with the mainstream publishers, it's a very, very high standard, and they like to be trimmed down. They would consider a vivid description too wordy. So it's about different professional standards. Would you be happy having your work trimmed down to such stage? So like with a lot of things, we like to sit comfortably in the middle. So our proofreading service is essentially, we're a second pair of eyes for you. We will read it, we'll pick out any errors, grammar, spelling, punctuation, any sentence structure. Another thing is, we found out with our speeches, for example, we're typing it up, it sounds wonderful, brilliant, we sound really professional there, and then you read it out loud and you get tongue-tied and you get all muddled with your words. So when we proofread, we'll read it out loud to ourselves, we'll print it off, we'll get our little red pen out, but basically what we're saying is that we'll read it for you, give you a semi-professional, because we're not quite qualified, but we'll read it as readers, as writers, as publishers, as business people. We will read it properly, word for word, we'll go over it, we'll reread it. Now, because we're not qualified, we of course can't possibly charge a qualified rate. However, we are going to put our spare time into it, and what we do as a business model is our charges are based on the free time, because we have full-time jobs in areas that are not related to publishing whatsoever. So this is our spare time. We do this when we come home from work or in our weekends. And so we do ask for something to compensate for that, and that's our business model. So where you might find yourself being charged £10 per 1,000 words by these other services, we charge £5 per 1,000 words, rounded down to the lowest 1,000 that it's closest to. So if you've got 10,700, we'll call it 10,000 words, 10 times 5 at £50 instead of 700. We feel for that we've given you the time that we've put into it, we'll read it and we check through for errors, we're quality checking it. Now there's another reason why we offer proofreading for publication. Now you can come up later and have a look at our books, but what you'll notice is by the barcode there's some little symbols at the bottom across there, and we call them our category symbols. Now, for example, the reason that made us think about this is there's a lot of films that have come out of books, and you might find that the films are 15 or even 18, but the book has no restriction, has no limit, has no warning of what might happen in it. And I don't know if any of you have experienced it, but you'll either have been bought a book or you'll pick one up and get your impression of it, and so far through, oh, I didn't expect that to be in there, or I'm glad I didn't give that to my young daughter or my grandchildren or something. So we were thinking, how can we make sure people know what to expect without patronising them or giving anything away? And we do category symbols. And so that's why we need to proofread as well, because that enables us to read your work in its entirety so that we can assign the symbols to it. And we can't do that unless we've read all of your work. So if you were to publish with us, the only thing that we ask from you is to let us proofread it, we'll work out the fee accordingly, and that's it. So let me move on to the category symbols, a little bit more detail. We have two types. It's the genre and the theme. So if you have written a thriller book, we have a little symbol to indicate thriller. Because again, I don't know about you, if you've been to a bookshop and you've gone to crime thriller section, and after you get to the end, you think, that was more of a love story between, I don't know, the policeman and the criminal or something. It's difficult to categorise, but equally, it's nice to know what's coming. So we have our genre stickers, and we also have themes, which are coloured green, orange and red for mild, moderate and strong or frequent. And that includes things like bad language or violence or themes of fear and romance, because some people don't like to read bad language in a book. And the last thing you want is to pick up a book and every other word's a swear word. So if we have a red bad language sticker, be prepared for a little bit less than nice language in there. So that's our category symbols, and that's proofreading, and that's why we do proofreading. So what happens after we've read your book? So you've submitted it, we've read it, it's fantastic, we've categorised it, everything's great. What's next? Well, the formatting. A book, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover or its interior, but we all do. And when there's so many different types of fonts available and different visuals, why choose Times New Roman? Why be boring? Why copy everyone? And for example, we've got a different kind of font in this one, which is a story set in a school, so it's quite a typed font compared to, thank you, don't have enough hands, compared to a children's book, which is bigger, it's more swirly, it's more an engaging kind of type font. And so we can offer lots of different fonts, and we can format it and lay out the book how you want. You might want to format it yourself, and we can advise you, because if you're publishing your own book, you might not realise about mirrored margins. For example, where the book is bound, you're going to want a bigger margin, otherwise you're going to lose your words to the centre of the book. You might not have thought about that if you were doing it yourself. And page numbers and anything interesting, keep picking this one up, that's why it's so popular. But for example, in the bottom, we've got Pancake chasing the rabbit across the bottom, and as you flick through the book, he starts catching up with him a little bit. So we like to do something different with each of the books. So we can do a formatting service for you, and that's only going to cost you £1 per 1,000 words, and that's again down to the time that it takes us to go through all of it. But if you're going to proofread with us and format, we can do it all together. We'll just charge you for the one thing. So that's formatting. What's after that? Well, then it's the cover. We recommend then you've got to look in the cover. If you've gone with an artistic direction inside, you might want to copy it on the outside. And like we say, you do judge a book by its cover. It needs to look good. It needs to bring people in. Now at the moment, we're looking into, because we're new and emerging ourselves and we're trying to get contacts, we're going to go towards freelance artists, people in college and university, get them a little bit of work. Peter's book's been illustrated on the front cover by his granddaughter Lily, and inside some children at school that I believe you read it to have done illustrations on the inside, so there's one. But we like to build up some connections with freelance artists so we can offer a variety of different designs. But at the moment, it's just me. So apart from this front cover, I've done all the design work for the Nemesis titles at the moment. And I know we don't have a very big range to really showcase the differences that I can do. But what I can point out is the two biggest differences is a hand-drawn piece of artwork and a digital creation. And for example, this one, this one is a hand-drawn one, whereas this one, which is, if you can come up and look later, it's got an old worn schoolbook texture to it, and that one's a digital creation. So the two different types of art styles that we can offer bring different prices, because one will use artistic materials, the other won't. But we offer an artwork service and we can design it however you want. Now we also understand that at this point you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, your costs are adding up as well. And that's true. We know we need to charge for our free time, but we also want to encourage people to publish and write how they want. So we do offer a book cover service that's completely free. And what that entails is we have a range of templates. based on the category symbols and genres. So it has a small banner across the top that says Nemesis Publishing, because for us that means uniformity across. Corporate animal is a rhinoceros. So our horror one is a vampire rhino with a cape. So that's our Nemesis horror, and we have a variety of genre templates like that. I believe Humour's a clown, he has a little red nose and a wig.
And the sci-fi one's got one of those fishbowl.
So we've got a range of free templates, and then you have a blank space of which you can put whatever you want in it. So maybe you've got a photograph, or you have a friend who can draw. But we also have a free image archive, what we call it, which is a selection of photographs, artwork that I've drawn that you can use for free. So we'll piece it together and make so the cover's still as unique as you want, but it's just got that little banner across the top that we ask for the uniformity sense. But again, so there's a free solution for you that we'll work with you with. If you want to change the colour of this image or the size, it's still just as unique, but it's just based on free templates. So we have 2 different options to offer you for book cover needs. Briefly, onto the ISBN number, because that's on the book as well. We as a company have our own ISBN numbers, because if you were to purchase them yourself, don't worry about it, I've probably done it. If you were to buy your own ISBN numbers, what you will find is you can only buy them in a pack of 10 minimum, and that's going to set you back by £130 just for 10. Seems a bit excessive if you only want to publish one book. So we'll give you a free ISBN number. I assure you it is not recycled, it's brand new, it's personal to you. When it's scanned, it will show as your book, your title, you're the author, we're the publishers. However, on that note, if you decided not to stay with us, you can't take your ISBN number with you. You could take your artwork with you and the formatting, you paid for that, that's yours. But if you were to do it yourself, you can't take the ISBN number because it would still register as us as the publisher anyway. But we give that for free, we generate the barcode for free for you, and we'll put that on. So now you've got your finished product. We've gone back and forth, you're very happy with it, you get a free one as standard because you're the author, and we send that to you. What would we recommend next for the publishing process? Well, reviewers is a good optional process. You don't have to, but it is a good one. If you see a book that says, fantastic, 5 stars, The Times, you're going to trust the word of an editor from The Times. So we do recommend, if you can, to try and get some reviews, because then you can utilise that and say, well, so-and-so enjoyed it, so I'm sure you will too. What we recommend for reviewers is to submit it to creative writing lecturers, maybe if you've been to university or you know people that write, other authors that have inspired you, that are similar, or you've written a similar kind of story. So, you know, as an author, you've inspired me to write this, would you give this a read? Newspapers, they are good for it, but because the newspaper's a very big corporation, you could be waiting a long time for them to get to you, but definitely try them. Magazines, niche magazines, anything like that. And for the review process, we can help you with that. We'll do some research, we can get some contacts, some addresses for you. We do recommend that you send a physical book, because a lot of people prefer to read a book as a book. So we don't recommend sending them an email, but you can do, because obviously if you send them a physical book, you have to pay for it. But we assist in the review process. We can write a covering letter for you, recommending a review, we can post it for you. If anything comes back, we can add the review to the front with the star rating. We can do anything like that, we can help you. But again, reviewing is only optional, that's up to you.
And it can be hit and miss. What might work for one may not necessarily work for someone else, depending on the context or maybe even the genre. So it's really a personal decision, isn't it?
Very much so. And it very much depends on the type of book you've got and the length of book, because you could send them a very, very big book and they might be put off by trying to review it, whereas if they get started, it'd be a really good book, they might enjoy it. So it's very hit and miss. So finally, all of that's done and sorted. You might have your reviews, you might decide you don't want to. What would we do next for the publishing process? Well, we're going to start selling it. And we publish paperbacks. We don't publish ebooks. Personally, because we don't like Kindles, we prefer our traditional method. It incorporates all the original artwork. But also, as mentioned mentioned earlier, you have to protect your digital file, and it's a very difficult and complicated process that we're still in the midst of learning. So at the moment we offer paperback publishing, primarily in A5. However, we can do different sizes, anywhere between A4 and down to A6, I believe, and we can do hardback as well. But we always consult with you because different publishing methods, and hardback is going to be more expensive to make, which means it's going to be more expensive to sell. Now, we sell on our website, we sell online, because we don't have a store yet. That's the dream, but we don't yet. So we sell online, people order it, and we'll post it out. But as well as that, we will list any of our books on waterstones.com, on Amazon, the Book Depository, and more recently, Biblio as standard. You get that anyway. That's part of the package that we offer. Subject to them changing the rules and the goalposts, of course. But all the books are listed on there as standard, and we sell them on our website. Now, before I go on a little bit further about selling and marketing, I need to stress and emphasise that publisher and publicist are two very different jobs. And we are publishers, we're not a publicist. Now, you might find a mainstream publisher has the capacity to have both types of people work together, and you don't realise that it's two different people working on your book. You just think the same person buys it, markets, sells it. They're actually two very, very different roles. Now, what our job is to do is to make your beautiful paperback, and we'll sell it, and we'll assist you and help you all the way. But it's not our job to stand it, you know, in the town centre with the bell and town crier, or go shop to shop with a briefcase, because that's a publicist's job. And you've got to be good with your words. And you might have noticed I'm not brilliant with my words at the moment. So we're publishers, but not publicists. Now, what we will do, as a company anyway, but as an individual to you as an author, we'll always try and gain more connections. For example, a big publisher can go up to a big retailer and say, I've got a new book. And the retailer will stock it without really knowing what it is. Not in a negative way, but because they have the connection, they trust the publisher, they've not let them down before, they trust that this new book must be as good as before. And of course, that's our aim. We aim to build that kind of relationship with shops. And we've just recently got our connection with a bookshop in North Yorkshire that is now stocking our books on the shelf. So there's our first connection, and we'll always try and gain those. But we can't guarantee it. If we email them, they might choose to ignore us. If we write a letter, they might reply saying, like we mentioned earlier, we don't think this book will sell, we don't want to buy into this. But it doesn't mean that we won't look for it. And if you have written a children's book, we will email specifically children's bookstores or children's books bloggers. We will do all of that. It's just that we don't have the capacity to say, definitely, you will be in this bookshop. But of course we'll try, we always will, and that's what we aim to do. To give another example, another story about popularity, very recently it's become popular, the Game of Thrones series, if you've all heard of that. It's come out in a TV series, it's got Sean Bean in it, it's been a big budget, it's doing well for itself. And you go in the shop, you can't turn around without seeing how many books he's got. I think it's on 7 now. Brilliant, where's this guy come from? He's got his, he's got his TV series, he's got comic books, he's got all his books out, that's fantastic. But when was his first book first published? 1996. So he's waited 17 years to finally gain the recognition that the media portrays as being overnight. So what we're saying is patience is the key to being a creative person, to being a writer. You will know as a writer that it takes a long time to do, and the process doesn't end when you have finished writing it. There is a lot more afterwards, and that is why we're here. That's why we're here, to help. So that's a summary of the process. What are we actually looking for? What do we want from a submission? Well, we at Nemesis, we publish primarily literary fictions at the moment, but that isn't to say that we wouldn't look into non-fiction. And we're also, upcoming, we'll be doing poetry and picture books and all sorts of different types of things. We're not genre specific, we don't disregard something for its genre. What we're looking for is a story that's unique, something that's a bit different, it's well crafted, you've clearly, you've thought about it, and just somebody who's passionate about writing. If you've written only 20,000 words, that doesn't matter. If you've written sci-fi, and sci-fi's not been in since Star Trek, what does it matter? You've written a good story, and that's what matters. We want to give people that sense of pride of being able to put their book on the bookshelf, to be published. They might get a few pence royalty, but it's just about encouragement, and we don't disregard anything without good reason. For example, if it's quite poorly written, well, we wouldn't just reject you, we would actually give you advice, like how can you do it better? And our website actually has a variety of tips and hints and downloadable writing games and exercises to help you develop your writing talent. We're not just here, take your money, publish a book and go. We want to encourage people. So we accept any kinds of submissions. But what you would actually need to send to us is a synopsis, which you might know is just a brief summary of what happens in your book from the beginning to the middle to the end, includes all the characters and key points. We'd also ask for the first few chapters. This lets us get a feel for how you write. If it's well written, give you some advice. A few more details about the story, the genre you think it is, the target audience, the word count. This helps us assess, ready in the future, if you do want to publish with us, what kind of size book we're looking at. If you've told us that it's aimed at children, we start getting some artistic ideas together. And just a little bit about yourself, because if we want to give you a personal service, we need to know who you are, what kind of person you are, what are you aiming for from your book. And once you've got it all together, you email it to us and we'll read through it and we'll reply and we'll take it from there. But if we were to accept you, going back to the publishing process, if we accepted your manuscript, all we would ask for is to proofread it and the fee, and then from there everything is up to you. If you want us to do the artwork, we'll chat with you and do it. If you just want us to give you some advice, we don't mind giving you ideas that you then take away and draw up yourself. That's fine. Formatting, we could advise you how you can do it in the word processing document, so you could do it yourself. That's fine as well. It's not about forcing you to do anything. You can mix and match all of the services that we offer. Proofreading is the only one that we require, as previously mentioned, for quality check and categorisation scheme. And then we start selling it, and hopefully, as we said earlier, we've only been going since August, so we're not a very big company anyway, and there's only 2 of us. So it's difficult to really find the time to really plug at things. But if in the future, as we start getting bigger, we can start offering more. Now, as an addition to that, we don't just want to do books, and that's it, all we do is publishing books. So we have things, like with the downloadable games that we've produced, we've got in the future upcoming a scheme where we're going to hopefully get into some schools. We're going to make little card games so people can learn to piece together stories, lots of things in the future. Designing merchandise. For example, this book's set in a school, so we're looking at doing stationery, notebooks and pens to go so that people can take it to school, or with the characters on, things like that. Merchandise that's relatable to the book. It's always about being a little bit different, about doing something unique. And on that note, if Peter's still okay to come up, we'd like to invite him up to tell you about how we've helped him as an individual and his experience, and then tell you more about his book, Bubble Trouble. So thank you for listening to the first part. I'd like to invite Peter up, if you will.
Oh. Good afternoon. I'd just like to clear up 2 points before I start. I'm not Hans Christian Andersen. I'm not quite that.